Hello there. Every moment of the day, events break from the nation's federal capital, Abuja, by the critical players of the different sectors of our economic and socio-political landscape. What we do on this program, therefore, is to relieve these issues and happenings to your living room on a weekly basis. This is Abuja Dispatch, and my name is Adegboyega Arogodo. Let's start off with those stories that made up our news headlines in the outgoing week.
President Muhammadu Buhari has directed all the security institutions to immediately leverage on the fifth generation, that is the 5G technology, when deployed to enhance security in the country. Launching the national policy on 5G for Nigeria's digital economy on Tuesday, the president said the federal government will take full advantage of the opportunities that 5G provide for the economy, security and well-being of the nation. Multi-sectoral stakeholders have consistently deliberated on the report of the selected location trials since 2019 to ensure that health, security and other concerns were effectively addressed in developing a policy that suits the country. President Buhari used the occasion of the launch of the national fifth generation policy to allay fears over its health safety, affirming that such issues have been effectively addressed. And the National Assembly has harmonized the electoral bill to retain direct, indirect and consensus mode of primaries. Consensus is one of the three options introduced in the amendment bill, which the Senate passed on January 19th, while the House passed the mode of primaries to be direct and indirect only. The Senate President Ahmed Lawan stated that both chambers have agreed to give a clear and sufficient definition for each mode of primaries and how they would be conducted. He explained that the consensus method, the two chambers have produced a very clear definition of how a consensus candidate would emerge. Following the Faculty of Engineering, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, UNN recent unveiling of its first 5-seater electric car, the House of Representatives has expressed the need to increase funding for innovation and technology in tertiary education in Nigeria. In a motion sponsored by a lawmaker representing Ikorodu Federal Constituency of Lagos, Honorable Babajimi Benson, on Wednesday, the House called on the federal government to adequately fund institutions involved in research in the production of electric and solar cars. Benson further explained and advised that the wanton environmental pollution and renewed campaign for a greener source of energy should be encouraged.
Welcome back. Many are of the opinion that the government fell short efficiently coordinating the nation's diversities and achieving satisfactory human capital development objectives in 2021, while many gave the federal government a pass mark in some of its economic policies, which have consistently brought the nation out of recessions, which are induced by COVID-19 pandemic. Join us for the next segment, Dateline.
It is a celebration of freedom.
In the presidential broadcast at the beginning of the year 2021, President Muhammadu Buhari promised Nigerians to work with stakeholders to ensure that every region of the nation is safe for all, while guaranteeing that the future is also secure for the coming generation. He promised to re-energize and reorganize the security apparatus and personnel of the armed forces and the police, with a view to enhancing their capacity to engage, push back, and dismantle the operations of both internal and external extremists and criminal groups waging war against the Nigerian nation.
You have accepted responsibility for your actions in the field. It's up to you to identify your competent officers, irrespective of seniority and paper qualification, and deploy them to make sure that we secure this country. We have got a few weeks to do that because by the rainy season, we expect people to develop confidence and go back to the land so that we don't get in trouble by being away from the field and therefore unable to produce enough food for the nation.
When President Muhammadu Buhari announced the appointment of new service chiefs on January 26, 2021, Nigerians cheered as they hoped this would help improve insecurity. But the wave of mass abductions targeting school children that began in December 2020 only escalated in the first half of 2021. In the economic sector, in February 2021, the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, announced that the economy came out of its worst recession in more than 33 years, growing by 0.11% in the fourth quarter of 2020. The pandemic-induced recession began when the economy contracted by 6% and 3.6% in the second and third quarters of 2020.
The Q3 GDP report indicates that the oil sector's contribution to the GDP today stands at 7.49%, while the non-oil sector contribution to the GDP stands at 92.51%. This indicates that the Nigerian economy is truly very, very diversified, with the oil sector contributing just 7.49%. So factors that are responsible for this growth include the commitment of the government to the continued containment of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the implementation of fiscal and monetary measures to support businesses contained in the Economic Sustainability Plan.
Year 2020 had been gripped by COVID-19 pandemic, with lockdowns which paralyzed the economies of countries and threw Nigeria into its worst recession in 2 decades. The production and approval of vaccines late in the year held hope that the world will enjoy respite in 2021. But this was not to be, as the mutation of the virus and the emergence of the Omicron variant generated anxiety and caused some countries to tighten control over entry into their borders.
The vaccine mandate will come into effect fully on 1st of December 2021. And I encourage every federal government worker and in essence all Nigerians and residents to get vaccinated.
Meanwhile, it is gratifying to note that the 9th National Assembly prioritized the Petroleum Industry Bill in its 2021 legislative agenda and worked closely with the executive to secure passage and assent. These historic achievements of the National Assembly means that Nigeria now has legal, governance, regulatory, and fiscal frameworks for the petroleum industry that will promote optimal utilization of the country's abundant oil and gas resources.
What we emphasized and that worked for us to achieve what we did was to ensure that we worked very, very closely with the executive arm of government right from the conception of the bill itself. So our committees, the oil and gas related committees, started working with agencies of government that handle the oil and gas industry. And we had the interactions continuously up to the point that the bill was finally presented to the National Assembly.
The NNPC, now rechristened NNPC Limited, has been undergoing the kind of transformation to reinvent the entity for greater efficiency and value creation. It is not open to argument that the year 2022 promises to be filled with political activities in preparation for the general election in the first quarter of 2023. Nigerians are expected to seize the opportunity of the 2022 politicking and election season to impress their aspirations and preferences on the government. That way, the government will indeed be held accountable. Adegboyega Arogbodo, LTV News, Abuja. Thanks for staying with us. As the National Assembly resumed legislative activities for the year 2022, many are of the opinion that the parliamentarians need to address critical issues which affect the daily lives of the people. On our next segment, Split Views, we take up a member representing Kogi West Senatorial District, Senator Smart Adeyemi. Join us. Welcome to the Split Views segments of our program, Abuja Dispatch. And on Split Views tonight, we have the pleasure of welcoming to our midst the senator representing Kogi West Senatorial District, Senator Smart Adeyemi. Welcome to the program, sir.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Now, sir, the Senate just passed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, prescribing 3 options for political parties to choose their candidates. What informed this new stand by the upper chamber? And you personally, what's your own stand concerning this issue?
Well, I'm sure you were in the chamber when we had the first debates on the Electoral Act, and I was the only senator that opposed the decision at that time to put in place direct primary elections for political parties to have their candidates by way of preparing the parties to have their candidates to run elections. I opposed it because I took into consideration the challenges and the burdens of having to go around the world and campaign and contest election. I look at the obstacles, the challenges, the pains, the financial implications of having to conduct a direct primary system election for political parties to have their candidates. At that time, quite a number of my colleagues were opposed to it. And I argue that it's too cumbersome a process, and that it is not the business of any political party as to how another political party decide to have their candidate in the first instance. And for the electorate, I think what they should look forward to is for political parties to come out with the best candidates that they have. Now, if a political party refuse to put up a system that will guarantee the best of candidates for their party, it is at the expense of that political party to have a candidate that will not be voted for. In essence, if a political party should feed a candidate that is not popular or that is not acceptable to the electorate, they have other contestants in other political parties. And those parties will feed candidates that could be better than the candidate that fails to bring a good candidate. So to me, it pays political parties to produce the best candidate, which can be done not just through the direct primary election. You can use the indirect primary election, or you can even go ahead to do consensus system, whereby opinion leaders, stakeholders of the party will look at those who have showed interest and come to the conclusion that this is better. You can create a platform which will enable candidates to come and campaign, and about 100 people could sit down and look at those candidates and say this is better. Now, that to me is cheaper, less stress, and less risk for candidates to emerge from the political parties that are feeding candidates. So to me, I hold the view that the best form of picking candidates for parties to contest the election is it's not one-way traffic. You cannot tell me that it's only through direct primary election. If you have contested the election before at this level, you discover that you are going to run the campaign twice or thrice, because once you ask candidates to go to direct elections, the implication will be that after the direct election system, they will now go back again to campaign the same ward. You start going around those same wards to campaign for a general election. Now, that will be more expensive, and that is some of the problem that is making some politicians to be corrupt. When they overspend money, when the system is such that they are compelled to go and look for money by our means to run the elections, When they eventually emerge, they want to recoup the money. So why do you allow them to go through that pain? To me, if a party fails to fill a good candidate for election, a candidate with integrity, with honor, who is visionary, who is enterprising, who is willing to serve the people, is at the risk of that political party. People will now vote for another candidate that is, to them, is better. So to me, the system will check itself. So I stood up and I opposed it. But I think my colleagues have seen superior argument, and that explains why they have decided to have a second look at the decision we have taken in the Senate.
Sometimes in November, you spoke extensively when seconding a bill of an act to enact the Money Laundering Act to provide comprehensive legal and institutional framework for prevention of money laundering. Now, how will you describe the third leg of the so-called third leg of the tripod, of the APC-led government, which is fighting corruption 6 years after?
Well, corruption is a global problem. And corruption is something that we'll keep on fighting until the return of Christ. Because presently there's a global economic recession, which is compelling people to be tempted to look for extra means of resources. In that process, some people compromise the system. Now, this government came and they started fighting corruption. But it's not as if corruption is dead. In fact, corruption is fighting back. But be that as it may, I hold the view that they've not done badly in their war against corruption. But I will not equally tell you that there's no reason for concern about the level of corruption in the country. But not only in Nigeria, it's a global problem, like I said. Even the developed nations, they are coping with corruption cases. Well, I think that some of the challenges we are facing today as a nation, especially when we talk about corruption, is as a result of the kind of system we are running in Nigeria. We run a very complex system, and you cannot actually define Nigeria as a federation. Nigeria is not a unitary system, neither are we running federations, as a people. I think we have a very confused system that we run in Nigeria, where you can hardly place which kind of system is this nation being governed. When we got independence, it was agreed that Nigeria would be a federation. That means when the colonial master came, they appreciated the fact that there are quite a number of semi-autonomous communities and nationalities. Now, for us to work together, we need to have our recognition as we are as a people based on all the sentiments in politics. But it is not so today. And that explains why every Nigerian assumed that Nigeria is a big elephant. Everybody wants to cut his own and go home. Nobody cares about how the elephant is going to feed and what becomes the elephant in the future. So in essence, if Nigeria is restructured, I hold the view that there will be less corruption because everybody will have to struggle to meet the needs and the aspiration of their sub-political entity. And that will minimize corruption. Today, most Nigerians see Nigeria as a free-for-all. That is, everybody just take your own and go home. And that accounts for the level of corruption today. But being as it may, I hold the view that this government is fighting corruption, but being as it is, we will not say that corruption is completely wiped out. They are still coping with it, the challenges of it. As a matter of fact, corruption is taking so many dimensions. You recall in the floor of the Senate, I did say that corruption is taking different dimensions and faces, where people buy properties abroad in the name of their wife, their children, their relations, their children. And some of my colleagues were against what I was saying. But they know I was speaking the truth. And I was not talking to anybody in particular. But I know this is what is happening. Not only members of the political class, but even people who are not in politics. People who are affording money and they are buying properties outside this country. So I was suggesting that there's a need for us to look at properties that have been bought, maybe in the last 10, 15 years, and find out if they are Nigerians and how they got the money, especially those who have held political position before.
You've just mentioned some stuff concerning properties, houses, and of course, during the week you were in the news, because of a bill that you raised, on the floor of the plenaries. Now, concerning residential apartments and, offices, space, What informed this kind of bill from you?
Well, I was once a tenant myself, and I know the pains tenants go through in the hands of some wicked landlords. And I feel that if I have a vantage position, I should see how others do not have to go through the pains I went through in the hands of landlords in the first instance. But seriously speaking, let me just tell you that you just talked about corruption. Corruption will persist as long as we do not put appropriate legislation in place that will cushion the effects of this system that will run, so that the average Nigerian can have a fair comfort of the essentials of life, that is having a roof over their head, being able to guarantee 3 square meals. Today, in Abuja, for instance, quite a number of people cannot pay their rent bills. They can't pay their bills because what the landlords are asking them is far more than their source of livelihood. That's number one. Number two, this Abuja was built with the concept of we want only the comfortable people, the rich people to be in the city. In the essence that there's no available accommodation for the low-income earners in Abuja city. There's no affordable accommodation for low-income earners in Abuja. But yet, the rich needs the poor to be able to live. There's a city called the Forbidden City in China. Some hundreds of years ago, some people built a city in China, and they said they don't want any poor people around them. But eventually, the city collapsed. So, in essence, we must provide and safeguard the interests of the common man, the man on the street. This bill we are proposing in Abuja, first and foremost, is to make sure that civil servants and low-income earners are protected from the child landlords. People have amassed so much wealth. This wealth they have amassed, they forget that they owe the average Nigerian some level of protection and comfort. We will not tolerate a situation where landlords will continue asking young graduates who have just been employed, looking for 1 or 2 rooms, to now look for 2 years rent, 3 years rent. Most of the corruption cases you see today emanated because some head of families can no longer pay their bills. They can't pay their rent. So they dip their hands to the covers of government. Now, we must put in place legislation that will protect the poor. Now, people cannot now say because they have amassed so much wealth, then you now tactically enslave the tenants. Okay? So the bill is essentially to safeguard the interests of the low-income earners so that they can live comfortably. We are asking in this bill that if you are a tenant, you can struggle to look for 3 months rent. After the 3 months rent you have paid while you are taking over the apartment, you pay monthly, no more 1 year or 2 years rent. That is the way you can make people to be dedicated, patriotic, and committed. Legislators must put in place laws that will be of interest, that will impact positively in life of the man on the street. And that's what informed the position of this rent bill in Abuja here.
Our guest tonight has been Senator Smart Adeyemi, representing Kogi West Senatorial District. Thank you for your time, sir.
It's my pleasure. You're
Really
welcome.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari has, following engagements with stakeholders, agreed to an extension of the statutory period for the implementation of the removal of subsidy on petroleum premium motor spirit, PMS, in line with the existing laws. The new Petroleum Industry Act provides for the unrestricted market pricing for PMS from the effective date. However, the PIA also envisaged the potential for supply disruption with its resultant effect on the economy. Consequently, it provides for a window of 6 months from the effective date for government to request the services of NNPC Limited as supplier of last resort. This is to forestall supply disruptions and guide market readiness preparatory to migration to the deregulated pricing regime. With assent by the President on August 16, 2021, the PMS subsidy removal was therefore expected to take place effective February 16, 2022. However, following extensive consultations with all key stakeholders within and outside the government, it has been agreed that the implementation period for the removal of the subsidy should be extended.
That is our package tonight on Abuja Dispatch. For marketing details, you can contact us at the Lagos Television Abuja Bureau Office, Lagos House, number 78 Rafshoden District, Central Business District, Abuja. Or better still, you can link us up on any of our various social media platforms. Thank you for sharing your precious moment with us tonight on Abuja Dispatch. A week from now, we'll bring you another refreshing package. Same time, same station. Adeboye Garobodo is my name. Have a good night.